Hi, I'm Thea. Everyone said I was crazy when I opened the first restaurant in a desolate Miami warehouse district. Now the whole world knows that as Wynwood. Then I did it again in Alapata. Ever wonder how a place goes from not to hot? Join me for a behind-the-scenes look at what really goes into igniting a neighborhood. We'll talk with the risk takers, the pioneers, the restaurateurs, the real sparks of neighborhood ignition. This is Thea's Neighborhood Magic. Today I talk with Jared Robbins. He's the founder of In-House Commercial, a full-service commercial real estate company in Miami Beach. Jared and his team have paved the way for a transformation of the Collins Avenue fashion district, which could be just the change that Miami Beach needs to move into its new era. It strikes me that a neighborhood has such fragility that the ecosystem needs to be cared for constantly, because in our lifetime, we've seen a neighborhood on the uptick, hit a high note, and then this sharp decline. And this conversation we're having here is pretty exciting because it kind of heralds the new day in the neighborhood.
Exactly, which we're trying to bring about. So, our team is trying to rewind the clocks. We're calling it Project Rewind. And we are essentially trying to bring back and breathe life back into this street. And honestly, it's never been, I think, a better time. But, talking about building neighborhoods, which I know is what this podcast is about, right? When you guys started in Wynwood, or when my father started in Sunset Harbor, when my uncle started in the design district, they started from scratch. I think the beauty of Collins Avenue is we're building upon these sort of, great bones, right? We have beautiful historic Art Deco buildings that you could tell are just regal and used to be something, and they're just sitting there. They need, to wipe the dust off their shoulders.
Tell us about the opportunity you've created.
So me and my business partner, Jordan Gammelstein, have met with every single owner between 5th and 13th Street, and we've assembled 7 commercial properties that we are listing for sale, and we have probably 5 more pocket listings for someone to come in, assemble, and curate.
That part of Miami Beach is really the beating heart kind of energy system of that beautiful little town that we all love.
Mm-hmm.
You've done something pretty extraordinary. You've created consensus, which is hard to do in any group of people, but let alone Miami Beach real estate property owners.
We have an amazing group of clients and landlords that, would of course sell, but also would be open to doing really creative deals with brands who want to come in. So I think we got really lucky working with the group of landlords we're working with, and they're committed to selling to someone who wants to come in and make the street, better, or they're open to bringing in a young brand who might not have a national credit, or bringing in a young brand who might want to do a creative deal, a short-term deal. See, what I do for a living is tenant representation, and I try to represent the coolest and the best restaurant and retailers in the world and bring them to Miami. So I represent a lot of these cool brands, and honestly, a lot of them do not have a home to go to in Miami. They find it very difficult and challenging to see where they fit in. And I'm talking about the brands who, want to be in the design district, but will never afford it or can't afford it. And even if they could, there's just not space. Wynwood for them is a little too edgy, right? Brickell, they don't want to be in a mall, right? They're a little too cool.
Sure.
And for their first location, especially in a market, they don't want to start in a mall. Coconut Grove's cool, but it's more of a suburb.
Whole other vibe.
Like if you're going to have one store in Miami, having it that far south doesn't really make a lot of sense. And Lincoln Road, which is roaring back, which we're all excited about, is a little too mass market. So I think what we started to notice as a company representing these really cool, unique retailers and restaurants too, but mostly retailers, is, where do we put them? We discovered that this once vibrant stretch is completely forgotten about. And it's sort of like, discovering like the ancient like Roman ruins, and
it's kind of painful to hear this.
I'm sorry, but well, it's more of a compliment to what that era was like, because these buildings are gorgeous. I mean, if you take a drive from Collins on 5th Street to 9th, these buildings are gorgeous.
So you mentioned your family, and I wanted to ask, around your dinner table, I mean, over the years, you've had 3 generations of serious Miami real estate players. What is the conversation? Is it, oh, you had it so much easier because, people actually went to stores, or you had it so much easier, or you have it so much easier because you have social media? What are those conversations? It's a tough crowd, your family.
Yeah.
What are those conversations like?
First of all, I love that question. Thank you. It's as if you were there. My uncle and my father obviously have done extraordinary things, and with the neighborhoods they built, I'm not saying it was maybe easier or harder, but their access to neighborhoods that obviously in retrospect were so clearly primed to be redeveloped is something that I cannot resonate with.
You're saying it was off you.
Yeah, exactly.
Neither of you are geniuses. It was so off.
But the funny thing is, I know when they were both doing what they respectively did, people were calling them crazy. And that's why with, what we're doing on Collins Avenue, when people call us crazy, it sort of, puts a little more coals on the fire. Because I feel like you need to be called crazy to know that you're onto something.
It's funny you should say that. I could have called this show Call Me Crazy, because every single person that comes onto it says, they thought I was crazy.
Yeah.
So your vision is a fashion district.
Correct.
For Collins Avenue. And it's pretty exciting because Vivienne Westwood has bought the first piece, and you represented the seller. So congratulations.
Thank you very much. The brands that are there, Frankie Bikinis, which is a brand operated by Leap, just opened there, and they tell me they're doing amazing. Free People is still there. Yankee Kicks, which is a really cool sneaker store. They sell $200,000 pair of sneakers. I don't know who's buying that. They're there in a beautiful store. DJ Khaled partnered with a brand called Snipes, and they opened a store together. And I think this street is very nostalgic for DJ Khaled too. Apparently his first job was on that corner. Anyways, he's there. Adidas is still there. Vans is still there. Armani Exchange is still there. The Webster is still there. And we sold a building to Vivienne Westwood. They were the first. Then we sold a building to a membership wine club from Canada. They're taking over a massive 6,000 square foot building. And next to them, a Michelin star chef, Richard Neat, purchased a building. He's undergoing a full development. So, luckily for us, we have a good.
I had no idea there was so much going on.
There's a lot going on.
I also want to give mention that the greatest Cuban diner in the world
Puerto Sagua
is still going.
With Collins, between 5th and 13th, and I keep repeating that because Collins is very long, obviously, and I think they just renamed it like Jimmy Buffett Way, which literally I looked on Google one day and it was Jimmy Buffett Way. So
I'm not calling it that.
I know it's not Project Rewind Jimmy Buffett Way. It's Project Rewind Collins, but I just want to be specific about where it is. It's 5th and 13th, ending at the Webster.
Jared, it's your neighborhood now. I'm going to make you the owner of these 7-10 buildings. You have your finger on the pulse of what the consumer wants. What would your vision be? What do you see?
I envision it similar to the tenants you would see in Nolita in Manhattan, or on Abbot Kinney in Los Angeles, or on South Congress in Austin. The direction we're trying to go is the Mad Happies of the world, which is a brand based out in LA. They do pop-ups, all over the US. They did a pop-up in the Design District. We're a big fan of their brand. Mad Happy, Bodega, Dover Street Market, Buck Mason, really cool local boutiques. One of my favorite stores in Wynwood is OFY, which I don't know if you've been. So I think the younger, cooler brands.
If these potential tenants are listening right now, what would you say to them about coming to Miami Beach and joining you on Collins Avenue?
Look, I would say, should I look them in the eyes? I would say, if you've been looking for a neighborhood to plant your flag in, this is it. And by the way, I'm wearing State and Liberty right now, my favorite shirts. Like, this is a perfect brand to come here. I'm wearing Theory pants. This is a contemporary brand that used to be in the Design District, but lost their store there. I don't think there's a theory store for a while. But to answer your question a little more simply, it's contemporary, right? We have mass market, we have Zara, we have H&M on Lincoln Road, we have Gap, we have Nike, we have luxury in the design district. But the contemporary brands, the direct-to-consumer brands, the cooler, younger, hipper brands, right now in Miami, unfortunately, have nowhere to go. I feel like in Miami, we get trends last, and it always has been that way. Like, I didn't try frozen yogurt till I was 18. And by the time I tried it, like...
I didn't know you had this deprived childhood.
No.
Or the frozen yogurt deficit in your life. Of
No
all
frozen
the things
yogurt.
you
We
had.
missed the cupcake trends.
So sad about that.
We got pokey, though.
It still is a pain point for
It
you,
was
I see
tough.
that.
It was a tough life.
Look, I'll tell you what I like. I like that you really have your finger on the pulse of the zeitgeist, what's going on right now. Did you want to take on this revitalization of Collins Avenue because you had an emotional attachment to it from growing up in Miami Beach? I mean, you're really a son of Miami Beach. I'm sure you feel sad about how it is.
It's a good question. I mean, look, to your point earlier about my father and uncle having it different, right? They got to do business in their backyard.
And grandfather.
And grandfather. They got, they grew up in Miami Beach. We're third generation Miami Beach. They got to buy and own and develop real estate within 10 minutes from their houses. So now, in this year, when we're looking for opportunities, everyone's telling us, you got to look in new neighborhoods. You got to look at Hialeah
You
or
have
Jupiter.
to look at another planet,
Another
space,
planet.
time continuum.
And I don't want to do that. Like, I want to do it right here. So it does feel really special to have found an opportunity right in my home turf, which I have such a big connection to. And, we're selling, one of the buildings we're selling is the Webster Hotel. And my father and uncle used to live in it. There's actually a photo we have of my father and uncle in front of it, and then me and my business partner in front of it. So it's very nostalgic.
So I think this is why you are the perfect person to lead any charge of any kind of revitalization in Miami Beach. It sounds to me like you are leading that charge, that you have the landlords ready to say, okay, we're done.
Yeah.
We're fed up. Not that the landlords have helped this particular situation. There's a lot of burying your head in the sand as a landlord and saying, listen, we want these rents no matter what.
Yeah.
Tenants are hurting, consumers are hurting. So I think that you've got their ear, Jared, to be reasonable.
Yeah. I mean, look, sadly for them, the market rents at the peak were around $200 per square foot triple net. Today, rents are between 50 and 80 per square foot triple net. And I think that was a tough pill to swallow for many years, but I think we came in at the right time. But I think it always starts, as you know, with a really amazing, iconic anchor restaurant and cafe, which is how you started in Wynwood. You brought that to Wynwood. I think Michael's Genuine brought it to the design
100%.
district. But you anchored, you started Wynwood, and I was listening to one of your podcasts, and I loved how you were saying when you guys opened, all these people who were in their shops working started to come out. I picture them with dust coming up.
That's exactly how they were, kind of all pale, coming out into the light.
First thing is we need an anchor cafe. Where you need a Joey's. Do you want to do it? That's why I'm here.
Nice pitch, Jared.
We're working our way there. I have the lease right here, by the way.
Oh, thank you, Jared.
I'm sure you've seen one of those.
Amazing pitch, man.
What do you think makes a good restaurant for an up-and-coming neighborhood and district like Collins?
It's the accessibility to that restaurant, the price point that casts a wide net and is welcoming to a lot of different kinds of people.
Mm-hmm.
Not just people that want to eat, caviar drizzled potatoes and Wagyu sliders. It has to be user-friendly, but it is a person who really cares about hospitality as opposed to being a chef or being a restaurant owner.
I like that. And how did you come up with the two concepts, Thea's and Joey's?
I needed to cater to the people that were in the neighborhood. So whether they were teachers or scrap metal dealers or artists or billionaire art collectors, we all had a commonality that we wanted quality at a non-abusive price point.
Yeah.
So it had to be welcoming, comfortable, and a place you could go a few times a week.
Yeah.
which is how I think of things as being user-friendly.
Yeah.
Which is probably why Portisagwa's been there longer than any hip restaurant. When you begin working on a neighborhood, there are always people waiting for you to fall. So what are you hearing about? What's negative?
If there were no challenges, then this would be Soho already. But I think when I look at what you guys built in Wynwood, I mean, there was nothing more dodgier than Wynwood. Or what my dad built in Sunset Harbor was a towing company district. And you know how great, the towing company people are. And when my uncle built in the design district, there was probably nothing more dodgier. So I almost feel like we have a leg up on all those neighborhoods.
You have a lot of tourists who come through, whether they're the ideal demographic for every single person. That just doesn't exist in any neighborhood today. You can go down Rodeo Drive and critique who's on that street at any given moment.
And it's not perfect, right?
Nowhere is perfect, and that's what makes society interesting.
I'm sure you dealt with a lot in Allapattah and Wynwood.
Yes, I spent multiple years and multiple nights in early Wynwood, pitch black, warehouse district, and then under an overpass sandwiched between the engine of the city, Allapattah, and Overtown, a historic neighborhood. And I was the only person operating in both of those places. And for me, it felt exciting and pioneering, and Miami Beach is a walk in the park.
Yeah, that's exactly
a very beautiful park. You're bringing an entire new, fresh perspective and dynamism to an era of a neighborhood that needs you. I'm rooting for you, Jared.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I won't let you down. Now I can't.
No pressure. All eyes on you.
Well, hopefully we look back at this podcast in 3 years. That's the timeline.
1 year. You have 1 year to sit back in the chair.
How long did Wynwood take?
Oh, isn't it still going?
Yeah, it's
Work
true.
in progress, 25 years still.
25 years.
I'm very excited that you're doing this. Thanks so much for being with me.
Thanks so much.